Okay. Okay, great. So, so tell me more about what you've been up to over this past month or this last week, in terms of your projects. And I have news and things like that, that for the next few minutes, we'll just kind of do a casual chat. And then I'll kind of share with you what I kind of the research that I did over the past month and everything. So,
Okay, okay, right. I've been working in a Telegram bot uh, to exchange USDT. So I started like 1 year ago to build that bot because I like blockchain.
mm,
So I'm from Colombia and we have like many uh, exchanges where you can exchange USDT by COP, Colombian pesos. So they just to have a Telegram bot to do that. So I like a lot blockchain. Uh, I went to some hackathons in uh, Turkey, London, of if London, if Turkey. So it was a good time there. So from that time, I started to build the bot, and I've been studying a lot blockchain. I read some books about blockchain. I like blockchain, so I am living now here in Maryland Heights. So for the reason I joined to the group, and just that I want to learn more about blockchain, about what are uh, doing the people here in Maryland Heights about blockchain. Yeah, that's all.
yeah, no, that's great. That's great. So I see Cameron has hopped on. I see Scott has hopped on. I want to share with everyone who's hopping on now. I am recording this so that way if I get snippets to be able to share out with people to help with any projects, then I can, do that. I don't know if Cameron, if you want to kind of give an introduction as to what your background is, and Scott, and then I've sort of have some research that I've done over the past week, and I want to kind of share out as well. But how are you doing?
I'm doing quite well. Good to see you, Jackie.
Yeah. So do you want to share a little bit about your background for those that might not know who you are?
Yeah, certainly. Happy to do so. My name is Cameron Brown. I'm a CPA partner here at Darn Advisors. Darn Advisors is a Web3 digital assets, cryptocurrency focused tax and advisory practice. It ranges from, managing on-chain and exchange reconciliations to generate crypto tax reports, filings for businesses, individuals, startups, funds, etc., and then advising along the way. So kind of everything in between, anything, all things tax, digital assets and crypto is generally fair game. Um, and I would, yeah, sorry, I'm lost my train of thought, but there we are.
Here we are. Oh, it's good. It's good. And for those that don't know, Cameron is actually helping the Maryland Blockchain Association with its accounting, as well as the Blockchain Legal Institute Foundation, which is a nonprofit. Scott, do you want to share? You don't have to be on camera if you don't want, but do you want to share more about who you are and what you're doing?
Sure, and thanks, Jackie. Yeah, I have went to one other call, and I sorry if I missed the other ones, but
That's okay.
I saw this up, so I wanted to hop in and just see what's going on. But yeah, I'm a full stack engineer by trade. I live in Maryland. I just recently started, well, in January of this year, I have a startup called Drip Rewards, which is
Cool.
basically a no-code tool set around building online communities, specifically focused in Web3. Just because community is such a big kind of thing in Web3 as far as building protocols out and whatever marketing needs they have. It's generally built from the community up. Um, and yeah, so that's what my focus is. But yeah, interested to hear what's going on with the org that you've established here.
Yeah, a lot actually. I'm really excited. There's been it's always nice to see growth. Portia, welcome. I do want to share as everyone hops on. We are recording, so that way I can do snippets and kind of help promote everyone. Do you want to introduce yourself, Portia? And you don't have to be on camera if you don't want to.
Sure. Yeah, no, I'm not camera ready, apologies. Yeah, Portia Dorsey. I am CEO of a blockchain startup of Errata. We're a consumer feedback app. We are in the development stages, so not yet developed and not yet funded. Very early stages startup.
All good, all good. I'm going to share screen in case people haven't had a chance to kind of look, and that way as new things hop on in terms of Maryland blockchain and the website, because there's always going to be new things that are going to be happening. So as you're kind of networking out in the community, you can let people know about the link. So once a month we have our virtual meetups. But also, we're starting now to develop our newsletter, and it's quarterly, so it'll be fall, winter, spring, that type of thing. But as we develop this newsletter, we're going to be featuring the various members and what we're doing within the community, and we're also going to be listing various places that people can go to get background. And in fact, this next week on Thursday, I'm heading to Florida because the crypto blockchain DeFi conversation cruise that I'm hosting is setting sail. So we're going to be doing 30 hours of recording and doing an ebook. And there is a virtual way if people can't go on the cruise that they can still contribute. But definitely go over, and there you are, Portia. So if you have pictures, hi Dave. If you have pictures, I do want to let you know, Dave, we are recording. In case you want to be on camera or off, it's up to you. So as new members kind of join, then we'll be listing them and highlighting. So also, I always invite everyone to shoot me over an email to let me know what you're doing. So as we have the ability to share out on social, we can. In fact, at last week, at the Government Blockchain Association conference, I saw Sunny, and we actually had a really interesting, I'm going to stop sharing for the moment. We had a really interesting conversation with one of the HUD individuals. And so that has also led to a whole nother avenue of the talk shows that I do, because I do Blockchain Legal Institute member bites as well as Maryland member bite talk shows, and I'll go back over to our website so I can show you that. But what's going to happen is starting in January, because Blockchain Legal Institute, which is a different organization, I kind of head both. We're launching a TV channel on Roku. So the Blockchain Legal Institute TV channel will be on, and one of the series that we're going to do is government. And so I am going to, on a monthly basis, it will be a weekly conversation, but on a monthly basis, each agency is going to be interviewed as to what they're doing within the blockchain space. So let me quickly just share again so, again, as a member, you definitely want to make sure that you get interviewed. So, but here we have Benjamin from Constellation, that's his talk show, Chris from eLivestock, and Kyle from Definity. But I have more of the talk shows in the queue, so to speak, and I haven't had a chance to kind of roll them out. But again, Dave, do you want to introduce yourself? I know you came in a little bit late, but do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Yeah. Sorry for the bad background. I wasn't planning on being on camera, but I'm always happy to share whenever. But yeah, so my name's David Utsky. I formerly worked as a federal agent with Cybercrime's headquarters, heading up the digital asset, distributed ledger technology, investigation, and education space. Currently, I since retirement have left a couple government contracts to start my own tech business in the area of using non-VPN PIAs and cryptography to begin to move cryptographic keys associated with digital asset ownership in a completely off-ledger fashion. That solution is devised specifically for government to be able to move their assets around. So still doing some things with the Government Blockchain Association. Gerard reached out to me last week about some things. So more to come on that. Not quite sure what he has planned, but we'll have that conversation next week.
I'm sure, I'm sure. And again, Dave is someone that I've also interviewed, and again, a lot of great resources. I'm going to share something that I was so excited to learn about at the GBA event. I met Ebony, who, let me scroll on down. Ebony Thompson is the city solicitor for Baltimore. She was on one of the panels, and she announced that last week, the Baltimore City Department of Housing and Community Development actually launched their own blockchain technology, in which I thought was phenomenal. She explained that it took 2 years to kind of go through the process, and so real estate transactions, and they are working with the circuit court, which I think is awesome, because of the fact that there's this cross communication that's happening. So she told the story of how when she got involved in the space, the city space, she would go into these rooms, and on the cabinets would be these envelopes of real estate papers. When you close, there's so much paperwork. And there was a backlog, and so that was part of the challenge, is the titles and everything were not being properly recorded. So they had to figure out, especially when COVID happened, there was a backlog, because again, no one could be in there. So this is a way that they decided that it would really both save funds as well as improve time and accuracy in terms of knowing, who owned what property. So that way they could also communicate with them to help the properties not be vacant, and to find out actually who should be maintaining them. And there was a lot of different things going on. But the fact that we have this in Maryland, I just sent over the press announcement to our tech person on Maryland Blockchain Association, and I asked if there was a way that we could have like a little news feature on the homepage. So that way, as news like this comes about that I hear about, or if any of you guys hear about it and you shoot it over to me, then we can kind of say, hey, this is what's going on in Maryland, because that's pretty phenomenal. I know that at the GBA conference, there was a very prominent person from Rhode Island there, and she was dealing with she was talking about vital records, and how both the reasons why blockchain could be good, but the challenges also because of the number of vital record different organizations and needing to cross communicate. And then also from a practical application side, if the blockchain chains don't communicate with each other and you're trying to share information, there was that. So what everyone is doing in this tech space is really important. And the multiple applications could, we have to kind of think through different steps, but what you're doing is really super important. So those were, that was an immediate thing that I wanted to share. Cameron, I know I asked you to come on because of the tax side. It's the end of the year. There might be considerations that people might need to be thinking about and planning. And I'm not quite sure again, what is coming down the pike in the future. But without you actually giving tax advice, are there any organizational tips or things that you think everyone maybe should be thinking about to kind of get their life in order before December 31st?
I'm unfortunately not a life coach, but I'm certainly a tax coach. But but jokes aside, the past 24 hours have been certainly exciting. So even people that bought in before the weekend are certainly up. But that means we get to talk about the fun thing, which is taxes owed. And some kind of things to think about, kind of getting into year end and things to work through is. Just good financial housekeeping. So if you haven't, gone through and done like a reconciliation or got your accounts up to speed to know where the heck you are, I highly suggest enlisting a tax tool such as cointracking.info, awaken.tax, crypto tax calculator, Coinly, pick your poison. It just depends on what gets the job done. And if things get too hectic, hiya. But apart from the actual reconciliation and kind of, balancing the checkbook, some things you can kind of action before 12/31. One is any sort of charitable contributions are due by that deadline. So any of the entities that Jackie works with as a 501, but jokes aside, um, the beautiful thing about contributing crypto as a charitable donation is that you get a deduction of the fair market value, not what you put into it. So if you bought Bitcoin, for example, when it was 55,000 here recently, it's now just shy of 90. You get a tax deduction equivalent to about $90,000. But you only paid 55 grand for it. And you don't have to recognize capital gains. So if you do have appreciated assets, it's better to donate those. And one of the platforms I've worked with a lot is Endowment. There's also Giveth, there's the Giving Block. But what's great about Endowment is they offer dApps. So you can make a contribution before 12/31 and then make the decision of where to donate it today, tomorrow, 3 months from now, because you've already got that locked in with the dApp. So it's a really, really cool platform for that. Some other big things to do is, if you're self-employed, looking at retirement, so either setting up your solo 401k or a self-directed 401k to make contributions of, so you can purchase digital assets or other non-traditional assets. And then the fun one, which is, any tax loss harvesting or rebalancing. So, the overall market's been quite up since the start of the year, but if there's any positions, NFTs that have went worthless, random alternative coins or altcoins that haven't been, really moved too much to the markets, sell those babies, get those losses realized, and make sure you're set up pretty nicely for next year. Yeah, I mean,
that reminds me about, sorry guys, I do have to kind of promote a little bit here, only because of how important it is. The Essential Digital Asset Organizer. I wrote this book for my daughter, but it's because I need to get my life organized, and in order for, but what you said about the losses, I was thinking, because I know I'm still working through this. There are so many tokens that I have bought that I haven't even looked back at to see, okay, what is the worth of it? What's the worthlessness of it? And should I just sell it, like you said? And so from the planning perspective, that is, really important, because if we don't take the time to kind of figure out what our assets are, then we can't strategically decide how do we make them work for us. It's not just like buying a pen and just having it sit in a holder. Supposedly the purpose that we're doing this is not just for the fun, but for the profit, maybe.
I'm here just for money, Jackie. But jokes aside, it's something that, because cryptocurrency is property, you get dinged, so to speak, on every single event. So when you're trading from like Ethereum to Link or Uniswap, and every single step along the process, although you're not cashing out to fiat, those can be taxable events. So I generally, not tax advice, but it is recommended to, when you do have tax potential losses, is to recognize those, kind of bank away those paper losses. So that way, you have these to offset your paper gains. So last year was a down year in 2022 and 2023. So a lot of things are recognized. So it does merit, it's good financial housekeeping. So get organized, knowing where the heck you stand, knowing what the heck you owned, so you can make these informed decisions. Because a great example of this is, not every single coin has been unilaterally impacted. BTC has been the breath of the gains the past 6 to 9 months. I was a big investor in Atom. Atom was 45 grand, $45 last cycle. It is not there today. So there are certain positions that may be out there that are unrecognized or haven't, gotten back to the regular value but you purchased it, which is ripe to offset other gains you've incurred. So that's the big one. And the IRS, allows us to a degree because digital assets are property. There are no wash sale trading rules. I'm not advocating like selling and buying back the next block. But given the high amount of volatility, buy it, think on it for a couple days, few hours at least, buy back in if you want to. But that's something that's a tool you can certainly use it, which is what the current administration, the Biden administration, was saying is the crypto tax loophole. It just comes down to wash sale trading rules.
Interesting. Scott, you have your hand raised. Go for it.
Oh, okay, sorry, I was muted for a second there.
Yeah.
A question about the NFT. So I had a lot of NFTs. I bought a lot of NFTs, though maybe
Nice.
the majority of them might have been 2022, and they went down. Obviously, 2023 I did buy some. So what's can you explain a bit about the process there of so do I have to record my purchase transaction, or yeah, I don't know how that actually works. Do I need
Yeah, yeah,
to like
great
claim a loss
example.
on it?
Yeah, so the IRS put out guidance earlier this year, is that it has to be realized. So just because your NFT is like the floor price is like 0.000001 of what it used to be, until it's actually sold, it hasn't been realized. So typically, if it's on ETH, you can just send it to a burner address, the null address, so 0x000000, and as soon as it leaves your possession, has been burned, it's therefore been realized. And to address the first question is, should you track your purchase data? Yep. So whatever you used, if you bought, say, for example, $100 worth of ETH, so you traded $100 of USD, got $100 worth of equivalent of ETH, you took that, bought the NFT, your base is in $100. Now today the NFT is worthless, you decide to burn it, you recognize that loss of $100. But if it's just sitting out there, you haven't done anything with it, it constitutes as an unrealized event. So it has to be sold, traded, burnt. It has to leave your possession.
Well,
Okay, that's good to know. So there has to be a transaction to purchase, or I need to burn it myself. Okay, that's cool. Good to
Yeah,
know.
correct. Yeah, yeah, and a lot of I've seen through client portfolios, again, not advocating this by any means, but I've seen like friends sell each other NFTs and burn them at year end. There was also a few platforms out there where you could just like send them to basically a dead name wallet address. But the
Yeah.
same thing applies for just send them to somebody else. You can just send me all your worthless NFTs. It'll be a realized loss.
Wait, a quick question for you there. So let's say I had hypothetically bought NFTs from 2020 to 2023, and I never had claimed them because they were just sitting in my wallet. If I were to burn them now, is that something I could claim as losses then for this
Correct.
next section? Oh, interesting.
Yep.
I did not know that
Yeah.
was
So
possible. Okay.
exactly. So the holding period gets set when you purchased, minted them, was gifted them, etc. So at that point in time, it locks in. But the actual like sale event happens when you burn, disposed, etc. So you can buy it 1 year, and that loss doesn't occur until you actually get it done this year or next.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's super
Yep.
interesting. I could claim quite a lot then, I think, in that case.
Yeah.
well,
That's
I'm
To
gonna.
correct.
burn them.
I'll just add, coming from IRS criminal investigations as an agent, you'd better have some pretty good documentation around that.
Correct.
And I'll also note the IRS just picked up an issue that when I was with policy headquarters that I dealt with almost 10 years ago is over airdrops. The
Yep.
IRS is picking up that case again and making an issue of whether you claim the airdrop or not, you better have reported it as income under current tax law. So just be aware of all of that going on as well.
Well,
Yeah.
very
We got a lot of
true.
issues on like actual versus constructive receipt. If it's made available to you, you just neglect it. It's still made available to you. It's still income.
Yeah.
Exactly. You can't ignore it.
Question
Yeah.
on the airdrop thing, just because I had received one actually. And eventually I ended up swapping out to like ETH, right? And then I went through Coinbase to kind of withdraw. So I guess I probably did pay taxes on that, but at which point would I have had to claim that, when I did the swap or when I actually claimed the original token, like the altcoin?
Was it in the same year?
Yes.
What's that? I'm
I was
sorry, what
gonna,
was the
s-
question?
Was it
I
in
was
the
gonna,
same year, Scott?
It was probably last year. I think it was the Arbitrum or Optimism airdrop, maybe. I
oh,
think it was the Optimism
the
airdrop.
retro drop. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
in those cases, when it's made available to you or claimed, I mean, typically when it's made available to you, and therefore claimable, it would be taxable as ordinary income. So you recognize that at the fair market value. So if the optimism was $1, you recognize income $1. And then when you sold at a later date and say it's worth 50 cents, you'd have a capital loss of 50 cents. But yeah, there'd be two income events, one on the actual claim or receipt of the airdrop, and then similarly when you sell it or exchange it or something else.
Okay. I don't know if I did that properly.
Well,
Or if wait, okay, I'll have to look at that.
yeah, that's all about the documentation. So I'm going to share just because we talked about donations and charities. So Blockchain Legal Institute is a 501c3. And I'm going over to the donation side because I do want you guys to see just from a learning perspective. So we had to figure out and I know Cameron also mentioned, different platforms. We had to figure out which organization we wanted to work with. So we decided every.org, because if someone does donate Bitcoin or crypto, then we don't hold it. It will be immediately changed into fiat for us, because we didn't want to be a holder of the crypto. But again, there are many good organizations, and Cameron, I'm going to have to kind of check back with you on the DApp side, because that's really interesting. And I know this organization only works with nonprofits. So, but it is important, even as a for-profit, to think about how are you accepting crypto or fiat, or doing all that, and what platform are you going to be using, and then how do you account for that. So I just wanted to kind of let you know about that. And again, end of the year, think about donating to a charity, whether it's mine or someone else's, only because it can help you tax wise. Scott, you had another question?
Yeah, just real quick. I just
Yeah,
as I'm
that's
thinking
what
about
this is for.
donations. So yeah, appreciate it. So I typically, when I've done donations, have done them in stable coins like USDT or USDC. Is there any difference between stable coins and then donating Bitcoin or ETH? Like, is there any difference there from the tax side? Like,
100%. Yeah.
oh, there is? Okay.
Yeah. So in the case of, I mean, regardless, whatever value you contribute is still going to be a charitable donation. So if you contribute $100 of USD, $100 USDC, $100 of ETH, it's all going to be $100 charitable deduction. However, it's a matter of what is more advantageous. And kind of the same thing is, because cryptocurrency and digital assets are property, you can donate them at the fair market value. So if you bought that $100 worth of ETH for a penny, you essentially have all that appreciation go towards charitable contribution, but it costs you a penny to get there. So that's kind of the idea, is that, and when you donate appreciated assets, you're not reckoning any sort of capital gains on those assets, and you're getting a deduction equal to the fair market value. So it is beneficial. It'd be recommended, well, not recommended, but preferential in that case, if you're going to, if you have $100 of ETH and sold it into USD, versus just contributing $100 worth of ETH, always that way, because you're not reckoning as a capital gain, and then offset or have a charitable contribution. So it is better to contribute digital assets that have a built-in gain, just because you're, one, avoiding recognition of that capital gain, and also, you get
Offsetting
essentially,
capital gains. Yeah, that makes sense.
exactly. Yep, you get that nice charitable contribution to the fair market value.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah, I didn't think about that. Good to know.
Yep.
Yeah. So, other question I have for everyone is, if I don't know how many of you know that Blockchain Legal Institute hosted a 4-hour summit in October. And so if you haven't had, again, I'll share screen. If you haven't had a chance to kind of watch and enjoy the summit, we had 6 panels, and people from all over the world, and it was all about sustainability. Our next summit is going to be about SRO sandboxes and economic zones. And we already have, I'm really excited, we already have the CEOs from Rio, an ecosystem that's in Japan that is going to be participating. And at the GBA conference last week, I had connected with a lot of people on LinkedIn, but one of them is actually with the European Blockchain Commission, and he's actually going to be helping us make invitations to other sandboxes overseas. And then also we're going to have UAE sandbox. I mean, it's going to be a phenomenal event, because there's a lot of different definitions, and there's a lot of recognition that there needs to be this safe space for companies to grow and experiment, and not be hit with taxes necessarily, or to kind of look at what the regulations are, but then to kind of navigate. So I know, Portia, you're a lot of our community are startups, and you still have to deal with the rules and regulations as a startup while you're trying to figure things out. So I also wanted to share, in case you guys did not know about there's another organization that I'm associated with, the Global Blockchain, I'll share screen, Global Blockchain Business Council. And they have a lot of great resources on here from again, standards mapping or regulatory maps. So I went there because I was curious because, again, things are happening all over the world. So I decided to go state by state since we were going to be visiting about Maryland. I thought, okay, let me see what information they have on Maryland. And to be honest, it's not very up to date. So but it was interesting to see 2014, definitely not. A lot of things have happened since then. So as I do research in 2018, so as I do research, I'm going to share back over to them. So that way they can also learn. Now, welcome. I know I just clicked enter for a new person. And one of the new relationships that actually I've developed is with the Maryland General Assembly Law Library. I'm in conversations with the librarians there because they needed assistance with blockchain keywords. And so we had a really rich conversation about how the laws were written, have been written, are being written, and how they proof the laws, and then how they edit certain words. And so from that perspective, they were very open about the fact that they needed some assistance in understanding the tech language and what words should be included in the keywords. So that way it can actually help. And because of that need and the conversation I had with them, I guess it was around 2.5 weeks ago, what we decided to do at BLI, which is, also going to benefit Maryland Blockchain Association, we're hosting another event, free educational event, on blockchain technology terms. And so I already have, I think, 5 librarians signed up for it. And that's really exciting. And I've also discovered through research that there's actually a conference for librarians about technology. And I know it sounds kind of dry, but it's held, I think, in March or April, and it's in Washington. So I'm going to see if some of the members within BLI as well as Maryland Blockchain can't be put on a panel to speak. And so there's going to be a lot of opportunities for those within our community to be able to talk about technology and the developments to help educate those that are in different professions that might not have a direct touch, but they are letting people know about what we're doing. And, whenever we go to a library, I mean, Blockchain Legal Institute is a library for sure, but whenever we go to a library and we ask someone and we try to research something, if the keywords are not put in properly or are diverse enough to kind of cross apply, then we won't pull up. Like I was not pulling up the legislation that dealt with Bitcoin. And when I asked why, when I talked to her, she said that they didn't put Bitcoin in as a key search word. They put it as cryptocurrency. So I explained to her it's different. It is a crypto, but it's on its own blockchain. So you need to kind of have a wider net. So that way, if someone is putting in a targeted specific word, they can find it. And so that was eye-opening to me as to how important what we're all doing, because we're all educating others about the vocabulary. Even if someone doesn't think that it's relevant to them, it is, because it's part of our global vocabulary now, So our new friend who just arrived, do you want to, we are recording, you do not need to be on camera, but do you want to introduce yourself and share more about the project or the interest that you have in the blockchain community? No, that's okay. All right, I'm gonna keep going. Does anyone have any questions so far? No? So I wanted to also show this. I'm going to share screen. The European Commission is another on LinkedIn, but it's again, if you are searching and trying to educate yourself as to what's going on there, even though we are in the States, a lot of what's happening overseas in Europe is really critical, because eventually those laws are going to apply to us, especially if we are doing business across. So, definitely follow the European Commission, follow, the UN. These are organizations that are looking globally at what to do, and the standards that they're creating end up applying stateside as well, because it ends up and possibly getting into the law side. Okay, what was the other thing I wanted to share with you guys? Let me see here. All right, this is again just information, and I think it was August. I don't know, I'm losing track of time. So the team that I work with, we travel a lot to conferences, and one of the conferences we went to was the Wyoming Blockchain Stampede. And so they just posted today on LinkedIn that our conversation actually went live. So Matt Rogers, my co-founder, and I, we spoke about trends of regulation and compliance. And it was a 30-minute conversation with great questions afterwards. And that was a lot of fun. But, even between last summer, which is when this happened, and now, so much has changed, and evolved. Okay, let's see what else. I don't want to be doing all the talking, guys. So if you have something that you want to share, a project or a passion or any news or questions, definitely each one of you is, has a different knowledge base. And actually that does raise a question for me. One of the things that Maryland Blockchain Association is trying to do is to work with different community colleges and organizations. I know right now we're talking to Capital Technology University, but do you guys know of any other organizations that I should be reaching out to that maybe is not, would not come to mind? Any other community colleges or organizations that we should kind of invite to be part of the association and what we're trying to do? Dave, do you have any suggestions? I know you've been involved in the education community for a bit.
Sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, I mean, in terms of education, and I missed part of what you were saying. The kids got my attention there, but I know, right? You just can't avoid the little ones. But I mean, from my perspective, part of the issues that we've had with whether it be state government, federal government, professionals, is really a miscommunication around their understanding of specifically distributed ledger based digital assets, because what why they're so vulnerable to criminals is because of the fact that everybody calls them crypto, which is street slang for cryptography, which I've been involved in for 30 years. And distributed ledger goes back 30 years, being used for document authentication and storage and things like that, back to 95. So it's kind of interesting what you were saying earlier about Maryland and the real estate office and things like that. It's like we're now catching up from 30 years ago when it was actually introduced for that at Bell Labs, and is still in use today, believe it or not. But the cryptography portion becomes an issue because we communicate to people that, from an educational perspective, that all these assets are crypto based, and there is no cryptography in any of these assets. The cryptography that exists is actually in the main layer to protect the transaction of the asset. The asset itself has no cryptography. And I actually, Wiley engaged me in June about writing a textbook about all of this. And it's going to be available to grad students for a lot of my courses at 3 different universities, but it's also going to be apropos to professionals in various different industries, policymakers, things like that.
And until we understand the true nature of these assets, and there is no cryptography, they're not protected from cyber criminals in that way. And the more you move away from the main layer of the assets, so layer one assets are the most protected, but layer two assets are not protected by any cryptography that's in layer one. And then the DApps of layer three, now you're interfacing already insecure assets with a web page, because that's what layer three is. It's associating a layer two contract asset with a web page that's even more unsecure. And so, from the educational standpoint, I think these are a lot of the things that we have to get out to people, because people make themselves vulnerable thinking these assets are cryptographically secured, and they're not at all.
Where are you teaching right now?
I developed course curriculum for University of Advancing Technology in Tempe, Arizona, which is an offshoot of Arizona State University, and then also University of New Haven, which is an offshoot of Princeton. Um, and then I'm going to be developing a certification program through UNH to coincide with the release of the book for those that don't want to go back into a graduate program. We're going to offer graduate certifications, and University of New Haven's, offered to host those graduate certificates for those that don't want to go back into a degree program. So trying to reach, education with those folks. And then I've just recently applied for a full-time teaching position in emerging technology. So it would cover not only distributed ledger, but also AI quantum computing, of which I'm also engaged in with a couple of large startups. So, and until I hear back from that, I'd rather not disclose what
No, you don't have to
university
say
or
that. But the reason why I was asking is we can have, more conversations when I come back from the conference. I definitely see a way to be a lead generator for you because of us networking with colleges who might have a need and an interest in offering this type of side class, basically, to its students as a way to understand more about what's going on with the technology. Again, one of the things that we were talking about with the Capital Technology University is creating a virtual sort of blockchain center. So that way we can bring in experts like yourself and, Cameron and others within our community to kind of do this sort of non-traditional education, but still have vocabulary development and tech skills developed in a multidisciplinary way. I know that, with Constellation, Dfinity, and a lot of these other protocols that are we're talking to, there's no one right way, there's no one wrong way, even though I know from a security perspective there might be, but it's all about, stimulating the mind of those that want to create, just like everyone who's on this, call, so that way you can kind of problem solve. And so definitely we need to carry forward the conversation. If anyone else is on the call that also is involved with ed tech, definitely, let us know, because the other thing that I want to say is you don't necessarily, I mean, my background's law, but it's also education, but I very, very have a strong belief in blockchain use applications and teaching from that perspective. So one of the things that I know that we're doing in 2025 with our virtual conferences and panels is because we're going to do lunch and learns for the Maryland General Assembly, and we're going to roll that out. We're going to have maybe 4 people at the most on each lunch and learn. I want to make sure that there's always someone from the Bitcoin community who can talk about that. And then from the finance area, from the security side and the protocol side, again, kind of a mixture of the various business sides. So that way, whether it's our assembly or another one, they can ask their questions in a safe space. And if we don't have the answer, we'll get back to them on it. But if we do, because of the application, not just the educational, this is, even though Dave, I know you have real life experience, but it's not just book learned, it's actual, in the field type of thing. I want them to see the application. That's why I'm still looking at the city of Baltimore, and I'm looking at their just the whole idea of putting the real estate on chain like this is just, to me, so cool. With the
I actually have one of my grad students. So the teaching that I do is very kinesthetic in the fact that for non-coding grad students, I take them through a coding lab in a sandbox environment of creating distributed ledgers. Obviously very rudimentary, but it gives them the knowledge of, rather than just reading about something and showing them all the literature out there that is incorrect, they actually get to do the coding and see it firsthand and actually have that as part of a resume of, hey, I built this, through a coding lab, a distributed ledger. And then we build out a layer 2 contract and then actually teach them. I go through the steps of how to take that layer 2 contract through a distributed application software ganache. I mean, we're using, you have to use several pieces of software to interface a smart contract. And some of them get a little wound up in that initially, but once taking them through the steps, it's like, wow, I can really see what you're talking about now because they've done it. They don't just read about it.
Yeah.
So that is the practical aspect. So one of my grad students who actually was studying cybersecurity, but had an interest in real estate in the state of Arizona, built out a blockchain ledger, distributed ledger system that would interface and connect realtors across the state rather than having all of these one-off centralized broker developed server-based, platforms. And so it was, it's pretty cool to see when you take them through the coding process, the kinesthetic, rather than just the Socratic method of, conveying information, they can become quite, ingenious with being able to do things. But I mean, the other thing, if I could share, is the fact that a lot of focus on blockchain, but there's over 2 million different distributed ledger based assets.
Wow.
Blockchain is one type and the minority of distributed ledger architectures. Most of the architectures out there have become based in the DAG and Tempo platforms. Blockchain is actually I describe it as an Etzel because it's very slow, it's very old, it's very antiquated. Because it's been around for over 30 years. It's like owning a 30-year-old car. It's historic. But at the same time, it isn't necessarily the most efficient. And so a lot of ledger systems, and this is where the blockchain ledger community doesn't talk to the DAG ledger community or the Tempo ledger community. They've developed silos. So you very much have this distributed computing environment silo in this space.
That's really interesting. Cameron, you came on and then I was going to share something else, but yeah, did you want to share?
No, I'm very interested to see when you talk about the real estate agent and that as far as like just real estate on chain, because something we worked with in the past was Fabrica Land, which is like a novel way to kind of address the problem as far as transferability of real estate assets. Granted, not like primary domiciles, but they were using something where they essentially had each piece of land was owned by a trust, and then they were using the blockchain to essentially transfer interest in that trust. So it kind of mitigated any sort of like, I guess like the burden to transfer those assets because you're just transferring interest in it. The due diligence, all that fun stuff was done at the front end to originate the actual ownership. So there's many different ways of solving the same darn problem, and everyone is siloed in that aspect. So it's I guess it's also kind of a microcosm of the American system with 50 different ways to solve the same problem. There's 50 different ways to get it right or wrong. So consensus is certainly very much appreciated.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see what happens on the federal government side versus the state government side in terms of the tech that they use, and then how the different techs communicate with each other, and then how you create security between those conversations. Um, I'm gonna just quickly share this, and then we can go right back to this conversation. But I know that I just recently, gotten my hands into the hackathon side just so I could learn, about the tech. So for those that might end up, maybe not on this call, but those that might be seeing the video from it, definitely, experiment in hackathons, because that's when you can get, join a team. You can learn both the language, and you can also win prizes, again, small or large, it's a great experience in terms of just listening to the conversations. I mean, I guess it was my first one was East Denver. And it's just really a lot of fun. Scott, you raised your hand.
Oh, I was gonna share my hackathon experience too. I actually
Yeah.
was at Consensus in May in Austin, and my team won a grand prize
Ah,
for our innovation there. We actually were able to airdrop on-chain rewards using inaudible sound waves. So you can think of it like audio QR codes. But anyway, yeah, we got 25,000 for that.
wow,
In
congrats. I
our
was in the
BPC. So
room when I
sweet.
don't know if I saw your thing, but I was in the hackathon because I couldn't be on the team which was fine. I was interviewing people, and Matt, who's my co-founder, we created a team with others, and I was the odd person out at that point, but I was fine to be the observer.
Yeah, no, Consensus was awesome. And I'd recommend to try these hackathons out. And yeah, build it. You don't have to have I am a coder, so I have an advantage there, but you don't need to be a coder to join the teams. Like you can
Yeah.
be a product person, have the idea, and honestly, that's a good way to get started and win some money maybe too.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. We have only 7 more minutes because I definitely always stop this at 8. I did see, Scott, that you messaged that you wanted to be part of the Lunch and Learn. Everyone is welcome to be part of the Lunch and Learns and the other virtual things that we're doing, because I think it's really important. The conversation on those panels will be a little bit more structured than our hour-long conversation here. I'll probably have different topics, but I'm also going to be surveying the staffers to see what questions do they maybe want to have answered. And if they don't know, then I'll kind of lead the conversation in advance with kind of some questions that everyone who's on the virtual panel will kind of answer in anticipation of possibly legislation that needs to be introduced. Any other thoughts before we have 1 month before the next one, and a lot of different people are going to be invited to hop on, each time, so that way we can get diverse conversation. Anything anyone wants to share? No.
I was one more question perhaps. I'm curious, like what could we do for you? So how can I help you? I mean, I have like, I would say quite a bit of experience. I'm pretty crypto native, but I don't know how I can help you with your association. So how can I do that for you?
Yeah, no, I appreciate the question. Definitely, just like we haven't even talked about DAOs, Cameron. That's a whole nother area that, and there was another individual who's in Baltimore actually that is in the DAO community. Everyone's networking in different spots. And, if you hear people, I think I met 3 people who were based in Maryland at the GBA event. And so that means that we can grow our association. And they're all different levels of membership at the association. And the only reason why I'm suggesting people become a member is uh, that allows me, when we go to the General Assembly, to say we have X number of members. These are voters. We're talking to Coinbase. We're talking to a lot of major players who are interested in Maryland as a market. But also, I know I'm kind of circling around your question, but maybe not in 2025, but probably in 2026, I want to see about having a blockchain conference happen in Maryland. Again, I don't know that I actually want to raise my hand to say in person, but if I can co-host with someone, then maybe. I like the virtuals because I know that our state is very big. But yeah, networking for sure. Being involved with the virtual events for sure. If you have news, definitely send that so we can put it in our newsletter. I have a variety of social media posts. For me, it's all about education and staying connected on these monthlies. I was trying to have committees, but to be honest, I've been traveling so much, so it's really hard to do that. But my thought was to have just like there are, I think, 6 different verticals on the Maryland Blockchain Association side. I was thinking about having 6 different committees that would kind of do networking within our state and see what is needed in those areas. So for sure, AI, for sure, Bitcoin, for sure, blockchain business, applications. So really, I know everyone is busy doing their own projects, but a little bit of, volunteering goes a long way. So appreciate that. We can have another conversation to see how to do that. I, I know my mind is kind of going fast here. Wednesday nights, actually, I do have interns. I can't even forget about them. We have interns for the Maryland Blockchain Association as well as the Blockchain Legal Institute. So on Wednesday nights, I do host a once a week gathering. So that way the projects that the interns or the volunteers are working on can, kind of connect. It's like my open house, open door type of Zoom. So I can definitely share that with everyone. It's informal. Not all the interns hop on every week, but they know that if they are making progress or need help on the projects that they've volunteered for, then they can hop on that Wednesday night, and I'm there to help. So. Any other questions? Otherwise, everyone, appreciate you and what you're doing for the community, and also have a happy Thanksgiving because that's going to come up way before our December event.
Oh yeah, no questions, but I'm headed to the Blockchain Africa on
That's
Sunday.
right. That's right. That's
Very
right.
excited about that. So I'll report back.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait to see the pictures and hear more about what you're doing there. Definitely make contacts with us for us. Find out about sandboxes so we can invite them.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
So Cameron, any last minute thoughts? Because I know that you're going to get busy. It's the end of the year.
Yeah, just holler. I'm happy to chat. Reach out, Dorian Advisors, or I'm on Twitter as your Crypto Tax. But any sort of questions are certainly welcomed, and get you pointed in the right direction. But all I can advocate is certainly do some good housekeeping, compliance, and make sure your 8949s and Schedule Ds are clean and accurate and happy to avoid those fun CI guys coming after you a little bit.
For sure, for sure. All right, everyone. I'm going to close out the Zoom, but for those that want me to have on the blog below your website or links, I'm happy to kind of include that because this will definitely be posted on YouTube as well as across social media. So just hit me up on that. And everyone, have a great week, and I'll see you in December. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Cheers. Thanks, Jackie.
Bye.